Chinese President Hu Jintao was one of the first leaders to arrive in Vladivostok for this year's APEC summit. Asia's largest economy has slowed with the global recession, but growth still tops 7% despite slower orders for Chinese manufacturers. Hong Kong economist Shen Minggao heads Chinese research for Citigroup.
In the very near term, I think the keyword is stabilization. Right? So any measures that will help stabilize the economy, avoid the social unrest will be taken. Right? So, but promoting consumption or services are deemed the longer-term measures. So in the very near term, they have to go back to the traditional growth engines, for example, exports.
At a meeting of APEC finance ministers before the summit, Australian Finance Minister Wong says China has a record of making the right moves.
Whilst there has been some moderation in Chinese growth, our observation would be, and I think it's a sound one, is that the Chinese authorities do have room to move to continue to support growth consistent with the plans they've outlined.
But Chinese research and development lags behind most other major economies. Dan Ikenson directs trade policy studies at the Washington-based CATO Institute.
China's very good at mid-level manufacturing and assembly. They want to work their way up the value chain. The problem is they don't have the right policies in place to do that. You need a culture of dissent. Not only do we have a culture that tolerates dissent here, but it encourages it. And that's what you need for innovation.
Without greater civil liberties, Ikenson says China is a poor long-term driver for growth among APEC members. And he notes, APEC is not usually a place where many deals get done.
It's almost like the cocktail party that your boss insists that you go to because maybe some future business is going to come out of some handshake or some meeting that you've had. But there's not much more to it than that. I think there's a reluctance of countries, of governments, to turn their back on it and say, this isn't worth our time, because who knows, maybe next year something concrete will come out of it.
At this year's APEC summit, APEC leaders are expected to discuss trade and investment liberalization, greater regional economic integration, and food security. Scott Stearns, VOA News, Brunei.